Hey guys, Magnus Robert here, bringing you another Walking Dead oldie character video. Today we will be looking at, wow, okay, a former president of the United States. That of course is President William Milton. A character that never appears directly, but we see pictures of him, paintings of him too, and we also hear his voice. Anyway, President William Milton is of course male. He is played by Tom Luce. He is early to mid 80s and first appeared in New Haunts via a painting. Before the outbreak, William was born to a political dynasty in Ohio. Now, it's unclear if he made it into a dynasty or if his parents were possibly senators or governors or congresspeople or whatever. Either way, both William and his brother had a pretty reckless youth. They were both little troublemakers, but soon they sorted themselves out and they became proper men. Now, William presumably married a woman and had Pamela, because he's obviously quite conservative, so you'd assume that he would have done that. It's weird we never get spouses mentioned for either William or Pamela, but either way, he had a daughter called Pamela, and in the 1980s he ran as president and was elected by the people on the Republican ticket. Now, what president does William Milton replace? Well, we know he served in 1982. So he definitely served from 1981, and seeing as he was so well remembered and his family is so well revered, I don't think he was a one-term Jimmy Carter-like president. He had to have been a two-term president. So he would have served from 1981 to 1989. Now in the real world, Ronald Reagan was president then, and it does feel weird replacing such a consequential president, but it also is quite clear that William is meant to be a Reagan-like figure and, had those kind of views, but I have a solution that still keeps Reagan in the picture. Maybe Reagan was Milton's VP and eventually became president for a term succeeding Milton after he finished his second term. But because of Reagan's old age, he was never elected for a second term and instead was defeated by Bill Clinton, who we know via Madison Clark did serve as president. This means the Walking Dead universe had no George Bush Sr. as president. Sorry, George. Or alternatively, George Bush Sr. was, of course, William Milton's VP. But I don't like that. I feel like Reagan is too important. And I think Reagan being a part of William Milton's administration, I think works to still have the same economic style. And basically, like, The Walking Dead is very similar to our world. I feel like Reagan was too important for the right or wrong reasons, whatever you think of Reagan. It doesn't make sense to not have a Reagan. So I feel like Reagan has to be a part of the world. So the list of presidents would go as followed: 1 term of Jimmy Carter, 2 terms of William Milton, 1 term of Ronald Reagan, 2 terms of Bill Clinton, 2 terms of George Bush, and then Barack Obama. Or at least it can be assumed Barack Obama was president, because we see a sticker in season 2 with Barack Obama. But maybe he ran and never won, and actually some other dude's president. I don't know. It's unclear if Barack Obama was president when the outbreak began. That's another video. Anyway, moving forward. William served as president, and his favourite holiday, of course, was Halloween, and he loved a good masquerade ball. At some point, he met and employed a chauffeur, and this was, of course, Lance Hornsby's father, and Lance and Pamela became close as they were kind of raised alongside each other. After his presidency was over, he moved back to Ohio with his daughter and chauffeur. Pamela went off to Harvard and eventually met a man, assumably married said man, and gave birth to 2 boys, although Sebastian doesn't appear to have Pamela's husband's surname, so maybe they didn't marry, I'm not quite sure. But either way, she gave birth to Sebastian and an unnamed son. She then went off to do philanthropy work, not interested in politics, but William's brother was elected to Congress. But shortly before the outbreak, a journalist named Connie, yes, that Connie, exposed William's brother for corruption, so he was removed from office and imprisoned for his crimes. It's kind of cringe and kind of stupidly coincidental that we happen to meet Connie, and she appears to be just ordinary, but turns out she was involved in exposing a literal congressman. Okay, whatever. Anyway, at some point, a coin was commissioned as well that, I think it's a quarter, included William's face in the coin. And Lance's father had one of these coins, which he then passed down to his son. When the outbreak began, William was secured in a city within Ohio, along with his daughter and 2 grandsons and his chauffeur's son, and eventually over time he helped to form the Commonwealth. Eventually society was reclaimed within the city, but soon this brought with it the good old Reaganomics and capitalism and class inequality and classism and all those other issues that you get with good old capitalism. And it's unsure when Pamela's eldest son died, but it may have been before William did. We just don't know where that is placed. But anyway, at some point, William gave a speech to the Commonwealth on the Founders' Day. So it was at the very least a year after the founding of the Commonwealth when he gave this speech. And he says, "Today is a day of remembrance for those who died in the founding of the Commonwealth. Their courage and grit helped to build the walls and protect the families within the community, ensuring a future." After he gave this speech, some music played and the crowd applauded, okay? They loved that guy. Anyway, sadly, some years into the outbreak, William died of unknown causes, but it likely was just old age, seeing as he would have been in his 80s, possibly even his late 80s and early 90s. So yeah, probably old age. After his death, his daughter Pamela took over. He likely was buried and had a big funeral, considering he was well respected within the community. R.I.P. President William Milton. In Season 11, we first see William via a painting, which was painted by Alexa Park. It is unveiled at the Halloween Masquerade Ball, and it took Alexa 9 months to paint it. Pamela also mentions her father in a speech, citing him as the reason that they're all alive today, as he helped to build the beloved Commonwealth, and how proud he'd be if he saw it all today. Tyler then takes a knife to the painting, and he ruins that sucker when he captures Max. We then see his face on Lance's coin as Lance flips it to decide the Oceanside's fate. Some days later, or a day or two later, we hear his voice via a recording of that speech that I mentioned earlier. A picture of him and Pamela is also seen in the final episode of the show, and that's it. All we get to see of William. William Milton was just flavour and a backstory to the founding of the Commonwealth, but it is kind of cool that he was the actual president. I do wish we got a little more detail of his presidency, especially like a time period of when he served, but either way, it's a cool inclusion nevertheless. I hope you found this video fun. I also tried my best to make it all make sense in relation to the real world history, so yeah, I've considered doing a separate video on this, but I thought it'd be best just to include it all in the character profile. But if you'd like to see a separate video kind of breaking down why I believe William Milton served from 1981 to 1989 with Ronald Reagan as his VP, if you'd like to see that video, let me know. But either or, tell me your thoughts on President William Milton, and I'll see you in tomorrow's Dead Oldie Walking Dead character video. Goodbye.